Hello everyone and welcome to the start of season number 3 in my McLaren Return to Glory career mode. Now before we jump into the pre-season, the off-season, all the changes for the new year, I want to quickly plug the finale. Abu Dhabi, link in the top right, the battle for the championship, George Russell versus myself for the championship. Go watch it, go see what happened. Spoilers are ahead in the next 10 seconds, so you have a chance now to go and click off the video. Now guys, if you're going to enjoy today's episode and the pre-season changes, then leave a like. Let's try and smash over 1,000 likes, subscribe for more daily F1 content, and let's get into it, starting off with confirmation of the World Championship. We got the job done in Abu Dhabi. It went down to the wire, and at one point during the first stint I didn't think it was going to happen, but the pit stop change, you know, the whole race, the whole phase, the whole complexion of the race changed with that switch to the hard tyre, and things really went in our favour. So here is the final championship overview for season number 2. So we're going to break this down in detail. As you can see, we went on a bit of a rampage. We got 5 race wins in the last 10 races, which almost was a bit of a mini rampage. And not just that, in those races we didn't win. We got a 2nd place in Qatar, also a 3rd place in Abu Dhabi, and yeah, pretty much a very strong end to the season, and no worse than a P5 finish in Vegas, which, you know, says a lot about the end of season run we had, because we started off the year with 4 pretty average results in Bahrain, Saudi, Australia and China, but then things really turned for us and we had 1 non-points finish in Spain. So for this season I'm gonna make a few changes, including bringing back reliability failures, because ultimately, if we're going to be honest, reliability cost George the title. He had 3 DNFs and we had none because we had the setting turned off. So for this season, to make it a bit more fair, I am going to bring them back, and we'll see how that affects things, because also there's been no regulation change, so the field spread is going to be exactly the same. There's going to be no more, major upgrades. We're going to pretty much max out the cars this season. Every single one will. And yeah, the things are going to be pretty level playing field, for the whole year. So not much is going to change. Other results worth noting, Lando, to be fair, had a pretty decent season. Got 3 race wins, had massive reliability trouble. Even though he didn't DNF, he DNF'd from the sprints, which isn't shown on the record. But you can see the P10 finishes in Belgium and then also Japan. Qatar, USA, Texas. Those P10 finishes were all races where he was leading the sprint, and then DNF had to start the race from the back of the grid and recover to P10, which was really unfortunate. Besides that, George Russell as well had a very strong season. Race win wise, he got 6 race wins, so actually tied with us, 6 wins apiece, which is pretty insane. Other than that, a great season for us. George, very unlucky to miss out. Hamilton was strong, and then it kind of fell away at the end. He had some poor results in Brazil, Portimao and Vegas, which really hurt him, also in Texas. And overall, Red Bull were the ones to watch out for at the end. They were really, really strong. Ferrari were a bit up and down, a bit wishy-washy, and Aston Martin didn't really show much of a threat. Piastri was pretty low-key, only got 2 podiums. Leclerc was okay, got a few more podiums, was pretty consistent. That 3rd place was kind of his for that year, but no race wins for Aston Martin. And yeah, pretty much near enough. Those were, the kind of results we got throughout the season. As for the final performance chart, you can see Red Bull, like I mentioned, finished strongest. Williams brought some upgrades at the end, but for the most part, it was Red Bull, then a gap to Mercedes, ourselves, Aston Martin, Ferrari. Alpine in that kind of in-between, between the top-end cars and the bottom end, pretty much just making a single car midfield. And then, yeah, all the other cars towards the bottom. As we shift to the facilities, McLaren have actually finally purchased level 3 fabrication for the aero, so we can now fully max out the car in season 3, which is the aero, which is where we're kind of struggling to complete those upgrades and show some real performance gains. Now, to add to that, we're going to go and improve some elements of the car which were weak in season 2, which we're going to have to improve for season 3 in terms of reliability purposes. So the gearbox and the MGUK, also the MGUH we have to get around to doing, but that will be in a moment once we get a few more R&D points. But now we're going to get into the contract renegotiation, which of course is important to keep this series going. So I'm actually going to try my luck. We've won the championship, so I'm going to try and go for a high risk and see if McLaren bite the bait for a change. The answer is no. They were not keen And even though we won them their first championship since 2008, they will not give me the contract I want. So we went back in for a second attempt. This time we're going to go for the medium risk, and this should get accepted, and it does. So we signed a new deal with McLaren. We will then have to review that midway through next season. And to go with that, of course, we have extra cash to spend. So we're going to go for power mapping. For the reason I mentioned before, we're going to run reliability failures on again. So that means we need to reduce engine wear. So we're going to get that on the car, and that's going to help us out on top of the other durability upgrades we've already done. Now then, with that out the way, we got hit with a marketing department event right at the end before the end of season, which basically we had to choose to appear in an advert or focus on, car work. And you can see there's a pretty staggering difference in terms of each option. Obviously, I'm going for the disagree because I want the resource points, which is important to me. So that brings our total to 1,700 as we now enter the off season. So when we get back, hopefully those upgrades should be on the car. We'll hopefully add some more, and we'll see also the driver transfers, which should be interesting. Now, driver acclaim, we level up to 16, so we pretty much make up that lost acclaim from that marketing event, which in the end meant nothing. As for the results, Lando was really strong in season 2, but he really dropped off midway through the season because even though he had reliability trouble, he also made lots of mistakes. Japan springs to mind, and just generally wasn't as convincing as the first part of the season. Now, for this year, we are going to go with number 1. I'm going to choose to go with it because why not? It's a different number. It's the world champion number, and I want to show that proudly on the McLaren car. Confirmation of the durability upgrades arriving for the gearbox and the MG UK, so that is also really good. And because of that, we're also going to add some more in just a moment. As you can see, confirmation also level 3 spec facility fabrication. So on the aero now we're looking pretty decent. We can hopefully add some upgrades on that front. And confirmation, if you didn't know, I mentioned it a few episodes ago, but Hamilton is retiring. So he has stepped away from Formula 1, I believe at the age of 40 now. So Lewis calling it a day. He kind of fell off in the second half of the season. Like I said, didn't really match up to George in the championship. So not too many surprises. Now for the calendar, let's talk about some updates and a few changes in place. So number 1, we mentioned it in the community posts, but from now on, any sprint round will have a short qualifying rather than a full qualifying, which was voted by you guys in my community post. Also, secondly, because there's been no regulation change and the cars are near enough the same and they're going to max out, we are going to shorten the calendar because there's no point doing 23 races with no changes to R&D. It makes career very boring. So we're going to go for a 16 round calendar, which I'm really happy with this selection. I think we've done a pretty good job. It's my personal selection of favorite tracks, but also choosing some that might be better for that AI and not so good for me to make things more interesting. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. The big notable one here is France making a return as round 9, so we'll go back to Paul Ricard this season. And then elsewhere, a good selection of tracks. Monaco for me always has to be on there because I love driving around there. And then we've kept, of course, Spain, Vegas, all those revamped circuits. Qatar's on there as well. And yeah, overall, I'm happy with the selection. There's a bit of a theme. I'd say medium to high-speed circuits is what I like. So that's pretty much what we've gone for here. No Hungary, no Singapore, which I just find really slow and boring. So yeah, hopefully we should get plenty of action and lots of fun racing. But now the moment has officially arrived. A new season, a new car reveal. What can we do with the number 3 McLaren we've come up with now in this career mode save? Well, here we go. As you can see, Papaya is back on the car. We have reverted back to the season 1 livery, which is the stock McLaren livery, but removing the blue accents, replacing them with the chrome, which we've kept on the car, which we of course ran last season. Now, I wanted to, bring some color back to the grid. The grid is very dark. It's very, carbon fiber. So I wanted to bring a splash of color back. So I'm happy to have the orange back on the car, but keeping the chrome, which I loved last season. I thought it was a real, nice freshen up, and it keeps that little detail going on the car. The McLaren, guys, is very, very, very limited in terms of what you can do with modding in this game. You pretty much can't change anything besides the paint. So, yeah. For this season, this is what we're going for, and who knows, it may well be the last. Anyway, driver transfers. This is massive. So, pause, drink it in, and let's focus on this. And this is going to be the last part of the video. So, Hamilton has retired, which means there's a space at Mercedes, which has been filled by Charles Leclerc. So I can't begin to describe the thought of Russell and Leclerc in a Mercedes is mouth-watering. So they're going to be such a strong team to beat this year, and they're going to be so tough. Leclerc went from Ferrari to Aston Martin, now to Mercedes, so he's going to be one to watch out for next season. Because of the gap in Ferrari, Alonso has come out of retirement and is going to form an all-Spanish lineup with Carlos Sainz, and yeah, he's going to be back in Ferrari for the first time in a decade, which should be really interesting. Because of Leclerc's departure, there's a vacancy at Aston Martin, which they've actually chosen to choose their third driver, Felipe Drugovich, as the man to replace him, which makes a lot of sense. For Williams, of course, Mick Schumacher has been out of Formula 1 because, he lost his seat at Haas, and Thierry Pourchaire just did not impress last season, and of course, because of the links to Mercedes through Toto Wolff, he's now going to go to Williams alongside Logan Sargent, so Mick returns to the Formula 1 grid. And finally, AlphaTauri. Daniel Ricciardo replaces Nick De Vries, who of course also was not great. Tsunoda was the better of the two last season, and yeah, also bringing things in line a little bit with the real life season in terms of the driver transfers. So guys, let me know what you think. The rest of the cars lineups are the same. No big changes to mods, in terms of the look of the game for me this one. I want to save a lot of that stuff for my team if we get around to that at some point during the game cycle, so hopefully you understand. We are going to have some custom sponsor boards for every single track, or at least up until the halfway point of the season, so also hopefully you guys appreciate that. And yeah, besides that, like I said, a bit of a format tweak with the sprint races and some small adjustments on driver transfers here and there, but keeping things mostly the same as we go for a 16 race sprint season, hoping to win the Constructors title, which is going to be the final goal of this series. So guys, like the video, subscribe for more. Hopefully you're looking forward to round 1 at Bahrain. We're going to see if the improvements will help us out, and it should be a fun season, guys, so stay tuned. As always, a big shout out to the channel members for supporting the channel as always. Finally, check out the 2 videos on screen, and yeah guys, I'll see you for round 1 in Bahrain. Until then, take care, and it's goodbye from me.